Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christoph Balzar. I'm an artist and curator, and I'm currently a doctorate at the Rheinische Friedrich-Wilhelms-Universität in Bonn. I'm also here for the NGO Culture and Development, and on behalf of several dignitaries of the Kogi people from Colombia. Today I'm also here alone, without Hanune Shalati, a philosopher, and the person with whom I founded the research group we call arte. I would like to thank the DGV and especially Dr. Förster and Dr. Plankensteiner for the chance to speak and give a presentation of what we understand to be nothing less than the renaissance of the Kogi people's traditional craft of working with gold. So here's a quick spin of the world of the Kogi people and the background of arte. The Kogi are the descendants of the Tairona who were driven from their territories 450 years ago by the Spanish conquerors and who took refuge in the remote mountain area of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in the north of what in the meantime has become Colombia. In this state of diaspora, they managed to safeguard not only some of their holy relics, or what we refer to as pre-Columbian artifacts, but also the relevant religious traditions that go along with them, since they have resurfaced from their hiding place in the 20th century. Their society faced many further challenges. They had to learn of the origins of climate change, which affects them heavily. They have to deal with the Colombian civil war and the war on drugs, which are fought on their land. They have to address the destruction of their sacred sites by archaeologists, tomb raiders, and tourists, and last but not least, they have to deal with the loss of the biggest part of their tangible cultural heritage, the world-renowned Tairona gold works. One of the largest collections of those gold works worldwide is kept in the Museo del Oro in Bogota. And it is to the credit of its founders and the visionary investments of the National Bank that what was left of the Tairona was not sold to collectors abroad in the early 20th century, but could be kept in the country. This is Gonawindua Tairona in Santa Marta. It is the political representational body of the indigenous peoples of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, amongst them representatives of the Kogi. In 2004, a delegation of dignitaries was sent to the Museo del Oro in Bogota with a special task. When they arrived, they were received respectfully, guided through the exhibitions, and lectured about the museum's mission as an agent of cultural education. But one of the Kogis, named Mama Shibulate, who you can see here, eventually delivered an inconvenient message to the museum's staff. He claimed that the Tairona gold works were trapped within the museum's walls and in dire need of spiritual nourishment. Their absence from their sacred sites and their people's middle meant ecological, social, and metaphysical catastrophe. Mama Shibulate demanded their release and repatriation on behalf of his people, but didn't get a positive answer. Only an institution like the Museo del Oro would be a proper keeping place for World Heritage like that, he was told. Only in the Museo del Oro the whole of society, and not only the Kogis, could benefit from those unique artworks. And at the end of the day, we learned later, those gold works actually belonged to the Banco Nacional, so Shibulate and the others had to leave empty-handed. This conflict is, of course, not black and white. This conflict consists of many political, social, and economic layers. But what interests me and my colleagues the most are the metaphysical ones, and especially amongst them the art theoretical aspects. Wherever you look at Tairona and Kogi heritage in the world-renowned museums, like the State Museums Berlin, the Metropolitan, or the Louvre, you will find objects of archaeology, ethnography, or art history. They are, to put it in Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimblit's words, objects of the disciplines that make them. Whatever they are to their culture, in such museums, they are something else. The Kogi's critique of the Museo del Oro is not about the mere ownership status of the Tairona gold works. This critique is about the ethnographic museum itself. It aims at a very blurry notion of art in use because this is not art. at least not the kind of art that can be presented like mere sculpture. If you want to call it art, it might be called an art in context, but that plays by different rules. The Kogi's art critique is at the core of our research group, Neues Arte. We are a network of persons who work as scientists, artists, curators, and cultural workers. And we are organized in NGOs and cooperate with Gonawindua Tairona on more than one level. I would like to present you this network not only as a positive model of engagement in transcultural dialogue, but also as an example of how restitution does not necessarily lead a museum to scientific loss or even institutional bankruptcy, but how it may eventually lead to even more interesting exhibits and a more profound understanding and representation of culture. So we realized how limited the Museo del Oro's staff was when it comes to repatriation claims of the National Bank's property, of the national property. But we were curious nonetheless. We wanted to see what happens when you do return Tairona gold works to their traditional owners and what they know about them. And we wanted to learn if the Kogi would share their knowledge. So we came up with the idea to return at least some Tairona gold works, yet not from such public, but from private collections by purchasing them on the art market. For this purpose, we identified a London-based gallery which sells Tairona gold works and which I will not name for legal and strategic reasons. Although international law bans this kind of trade, it does not abide to artifacts that were excavated before those legislations were introduced. The market can put the letter of the law against the spirit of the law. At a certain point, we agreed, one collector must give up his or her ownership in the circle of sale and resale. We convinced Dr. Werner Dohmen, who is the head of the Society for the Arts in Aachen, to be this collector. He agreed that such relics have no place in art collections and became one of the biggest sponsors of our work ever since. Through his initiative, we were able to acquire a first set of genuine Tairona gold works and to return them to dignitaries of the Kogi people under their constant supervision from A to Z. Eventually, other collectors followed Dr. Dohmen's lead, by the way, and contributed pieces of their collections, but that's a different story now. I will focus on one particular object we purchased in 2009, a figure of what anthropologist Reichel Dolmatov calls Icon D, the personification of the sun, and what the Kogis refer to as Hatise, or Holy Father. We contacted Gonawindua Tairona and asked how to facilitate an acquisition and about what needed to be considered during a transport of relics like this. We soon received answer from Colombian anthropologist Dr. William Torres, who is, besides his academic expertise, a fully initiated Kogi Mama who earned his title by fulfilling very unconventional tasks for the elder Mama Bernardo. Mama Kahuyali, which is his Kogi name, came to Germany in 2010 on behalf of the now former president of Gonawindua Tairona, the Mama Juan Mama Takan, who is also one son of Bernardo's. This Mama Kahuyali came to Berlin and told us, first of all, the Kogi word for Tairona gold works, which is sewa, a word that I haven't found yet in any museum I know of. It is a synonym for my beloved and holy relic. The latter would actually translate a little bit better into German as Heiligtum. During a special ceremony, those sewa were given spiritual nourishment in the form of coca leaves and songs, and they were prepared for the journey ahead. We followed them to Colombia and came together with a small delegation of Kogi dignitaries in a place you might consider another one of their embassies. So this is us on the compound of Mama Kahuyali, a maloca which lies in the district of Nariño near Pasto. So it's actually on the other end of the country. It was reclaimed and consecrated as part of the Kogi's territory by their supreme elder Mama Bernardo in 2007. So from right to left, we first see Mama Bernardo's grandson, Mama Luciano. He's the designated future successor of Bernardo's. Then left, Jan Frank Gerards of the Dutch NGO SKOP, the Stichting Kleinschalige Ontwikkelingsprojekten. We'll hear about him in a minute. Then left again, Mama Padilla, another one of Bernardo's sons. Then Hanune Shalati, also from the NGO Culture and Development, like myself. And at last, Mama Kahuyali or Dr. William Torres. This group of people, amongst several others, had come together before in 2007 for a remarkable enterprise. So let's hold on for a minute here and see what had happened on this very spot 3 years earlier. The person on the left is the spiritual leader of the Kogi, which I have already mentioned a few times now, Mama Bernardo. He's said to be 100 years old, roundabout, and he's the mastermind behind the plan of a renaissance of his culture's religious tradition of working with gold. Since his people lost so many resources in the past centuries through Spanish colonists, he decided it would only be fair to seek help from outsiders for this enterprise. The people he instructed to execute his plan were his sons Mama Juan, Mama Takan, right up. He, as I said, is the former president of Gondawindo Tairona. Then down below, from right to left, Mama Padilla and Dr. William Torres, or Kahuyali, who at that time had already been a disciple of Bernardo's for over 20 years. Then to his left again, another very important person, Jan Frank Gerards from the Dutch NGO SKOP. So those who Bernardo instructed began to set up a workshop for goldsmiths in Pasto. They requested technical assistance from the local university and found help in Luis González Martinez, who works as an archaeologist and anthropologist. After the workshop was set up, the newly found team needed gold. Jan Frank Gerards, who represents the NGO SKOP, founded a charity which aimed at promoting the Kogi's need for gold and called upon a global public to donate old gold for their cause. Within a very short time and through this platform, gold worth 40,000 euros could be collected. The sewa to be made was chosen by the mamas through divination and then designed after an image in one of the Museo del Oro's publications. It had to be a frog, they said, because a frog is traditionally the messenger of new life. The archaeologist González helped them to model that frog out of wax, which was then cast into a mold, melted out, and filled with 24-karat gold, unlike Tairona sewa, who are only part gold and mostly copper. So the frog to be made was supposed to be made out of pure gold this time. The frog was then polished and made ready for a ceremony in which Mama Bernardo blessed it and prepared it for the next morning. At this point, left bottom, in 2007, Dr. Torres received Bernardo's machilla and poporo as merits and symbols of his initiation into mamahood. So he's actually the first Kogi mama who was not born a Kogi. Since the spirit of the frog is feminine and it eventually had to be invoked by a female dignitary, this was done by Sacra Maria Josepe, who is the stepdaughter of Mama Bernardo, and whose husband is Mama Juan, Mama Takan. So what you see here is the first post-Columbian gold work of the Kogi, or better, the first Kogi sewa, shaped after a photograph of a Tairona sewa in the Museo del Oro. Compared to each other, the technique may have changed, and so the material and the creation process, but against all odds, the Kogi had found a way to eventually continue the tradition of working with gold after 450 years of colonial oppression. So let's go back to the year 2010 and the return of the sewa we had purchased on the art market. We were shown what Reichel Dolmatov once described as the ritual of exposing the gold to the sun, asolear el oro. It is believed, he writes, that the gold thus absorbs new fertilizing energy and renews its brightness, while the sun finds satisfaction in the offering. According to Kogi beliefs, gold has this quality, for it is the female and material principle in its purest form.
but only with the warm touch of the sun, the masculine aspect of energy, it becomes more than just another cold black stone in the earth. Only through this ritual, each sewa constitutes a state of perfect union between cosmic oppositions, focusing on all kinds of aspects of life that emerge from this timeless communion in all possible shapes that sewa can have. The technological finesse of the sewa, of hatese, that was sold to us as a simple necklace, was mesmerizing. The rectangular holes on the sewa's back were not mere remnants of the goldsmith technique called the lost shape, but a means to letting light enter the sewa's head from behind so that it can escape through a crack in the mouth that was so fine that you cannot see it with the naked eye. What the mamas pointed out during the ceremonies was the following. This sewa of hatese is not a symbol of the sun. This sewa of hatese is the sun. But of course, only in the right context. And you can clearly see the difference that context makes just by comparing the lighting of a museum or gallery on the left, which is artificial, and the natural light of the sun on the right. On the left, you see a brilliant piece of art and a symbol for hatese. To the right, we see a persona or mask of the sun, hatese himself, through which he appears to speak to those who carry him. Context is everything. Unfortunately, the context of the sewa was even more incomplete than we had assumed. During another ceremony, the Kogi engaged in a dialogue with them through a water-based oracle, the Jatukwa. We learned that those sewa once have had partner sewa who were lost and that they also had stools or thrones on which each of them resided. Their return to the Sierra, we were told, would not be possible until their reunion. The sewa who spoke through the Jatukwa allegedly said that this reunion would have to be facilitated through common efforts of the elder brothers and the younger brothers, and that is how they refer to themselves and to people from Western societies, by the way. It was decided that the goal was to cooperatively make new sewa as partners for Tairona sewa with the infrastructure set up 3 years earlier. During this process, Mama Luciano, the grandson of Mama Bernardo, chose to become the first Kogi Mama to master the contemporary ways of traditionally working with gold. As the designated successor of Mama Bernardo, he will become a key figure of cultural reproduction. And so in that workshop in Pasto, the Tairona sewa received Kogi sewa as partners. Hatese, the son, did not only get his stool back or his throne back, he also got his partner back. His Kogi sewa was shaped after an image of another Tairona sewa from the Museo del Oro. Although the museum staff also interprets this particular one as icon D, as the sun or hatese, the Kogi mamas contradict that. They insist on it being habase, the Holy Mother, the whole earth. The iconography is obviously very similar. She became Hatese's sewa. But what was most exciting to us was that due to the completely restructured process of creating sewa with modern technologies, the mamas were able and decided to invoke a second presence of this sewa of habase, which I have here. And here is why. This is a campaign of community outreach, only this time the other way around. It's the Kogi who approach the museum community with a highly symbolical gesture. They want all of us to find a way to bring this sewa of Habase, the Holy Mother, the whole world, into the world of our museums. They want her to be the first sewa to be there voluntarily, unlike everything else that was taken from them and presented there. They say she shall be our challenge. She is the messenger of transformation. So if there's the honest wish for dialogue on eye level with the Kogi people, we kindly ask the ethnographic museum community today to open the doors for her. The rest will follow. Thank you. If you want, come here and have a look.
Thanks very much for this
Be
talk
careful,
and this surprising ending. So, questions and comments? So, if you start by asking, have you already found places for the Siwa to go to?
Mm-mm.
But have you engaged in dialogues? I mean, is this the start of this cultural campaign?
There are several art places that would love to exhibit that, but I believe that the Ethnological Museum is the right place for it.
So the interest of the art museums was declined, or?
Beg your pardon?
So if the art institutions were interested, you are going to engage with them, or you put those aside?
This is a brand new development, by the way. This is very fresh, and this is a very great opportunity for us to present what is going on in Colombia, and we are waiting for people to help us with this. We cannot do this alone, of course.
And this message would be given for free, or what would be the?
No, there's no for free or for money. There's no this. She doesn't belong to anyone. That's the whole point about it. We are supposed to communicate that this is nothing that can be owned. That this is something that that must be shared, and the Kogi want to use the museum as a means to communicate this message, which I found very beautiful.
I think we talked a little bit yesterday, and I heard your project before, and I think it's really interesting. Because in our conversation also said, like, it seems like anthropological museums have such a hard time, and they're like struggling in a way, while other people from other disciplines find things a lot very interesting that's happening in anthropology. And I think it is very refreshing for you, to come from an artist's perspective and to approach a project like this and do it, and what you bring in, because we are always so embedded in our own discipline with our problems with it. So I think it is a really interesting project, and I think it also shows what Shalati was talking about before, also when communities approach museums, what does this actually mean? And it's a new era that's starting, and I think it actually is a good way into the future for museums, and a good sign for, and that's what in Canada and the US happens, is that communities choose, or families or clans choose to approach museums to bring in their heirloom. And I think this is something similar, and I think it's a very empowering thing to know about museums and know and use them for your own needs. And I think this is one of these projects when you say like they can't go to the Museo del Oro. They're not going to get it back from the Banco of Colombia. And then they say, like, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to solve this project? And it just shows the creativity and that culture is so alive and that you cannot put it into boxes. And I think it's just, I think it's a great project, which just shows a lot of energy.